Hi everyone, welcome to the Dee-Brief with Dr. D. Real talk, real strategy, real leadership, one insight at a time. I'm your host, Dr. D, and this is your space for bold conversations, soul-deep reflections, and truth that transforms. Whether you're an executive, an entrepreneur, or an everyday change agent, this podcast is for you, navigating both public success and that private struggle. Each episode, we take a deep dive into emotional wellness, grief recovery, faith, leadership, and the tools you need to rise with clarity and with purpose. This isn't just strategy, it's healing. It's a calling. This is the Dee-Brief with Dr. D. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. How are you? And welcome to another episode of the Dee-Brief with Dr. D. I am excited to have with us today another powerful person who's going to share her testimony, her story, and her journey of healing and how she is helping others and walking alongside of them in their journey. So, Tracy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. D. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. It's so great to see you.
You too.
So I like to start the show by asking my guests to introduce themselves. So if someone were to ask you, who is Tracy, what would you say?
Who is Tracy? I would say I'm proud to be a social worker. So I would probably start off by saying I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm a daughter. I'm a mother. I'm an aunt. I'm a wife. I am a best friend. And most of all, I'm a woman of God.
Amen. Amen. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So our podcast focuses on instilling hope, healing, restoration, and really empowering people. I'll say empowering people who are going through different life challenges. We definitely talk about leadership and entrepreneurship, but our focus is really restoration and healing. So we have people on the show that can provide that message of hope and that message of you're not alone. You know, we can do this together. So you have an organization, Heartfelt Needs Counseling and Caring. And I would love for you to share about your organization, what you do, and the inspiration behind your support that you provide.
Okay. Well, I want to start with the inspiration. The inspiration is Isaiah 61. I believe that God has called me to heal the brokenhearted, right? To decree freedom to those who feel like they're in some form of oppression or just a battle for soul prosperity. So at Heartfelt Needs Counseling and Caring Center, it's a private practice where I do counseling. I work with women 18 years and older, whether it's through grief. I'm a certified grief specialist, whether it's grief to death or non-death losses. We work with childhood trauma issues, adult relationship trauma issues, stages and phases of life changes. Sometimes we just need someone to come along beside of us and just help us on our journey to the next place in life. A lot of times counseling is about healing, but it's not always about trauma. Sometimes it's about finding my purpose, finding my identity, deciding what's next for me. I work with women who won't have the desire to be married, and they're in that journey of waiting, of helping them to be single, successful, and saved. My practice is faith-based, but I don't just work with Christians. I work with whoever I feel God puts before me. If you come and we do a consultation and I feel like can help you, we will come together to do the work to meet the goal of what it is. But mostly it's women. I do work also with premarital and pre-engagement couples because I feel like the work that we do before going into a marriage will give us a strong foundation to sustain a healthy marriage. So it's just all about soul care. Something that I have added in the last couple of years is redefining self-care. right? A lot of times we think about self-care, we think about our hair, our nails as women, but for me, self-care is the intentional work that we do to grow, to protect our peace, for emotional intelligence, what we do to be our best self, not just for ourselves, but also for our significant relationships, the relationships we have and want to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. First of all, thank you for sharing that. I did a podcast episode on self-care, and it's exactly what you just said. Self-care is not going to get my hair done, my nails done. That's just normal, hygiene and grooming. Self-care is really taking that time to center yourself and care for your overall wellness, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. So thank you
Oh,
for
wow.
that, for affirming that. I love that you're a certified grief counselor and grief therapist. In our organization, we actually are doing just that. We are certifying people who want to help individuals and walk alongside of them in their grief journey. So we have a cohort of people that we are certifying as grief counselors. And a lot of times, I'm sure you see this in your work. Sometimes the things that we go through, our life experiences, help to redefine what our purpose and our passion is. So, what made you choose this profession, and what made you choose particularly to help people, women over age 15, with grief?
It's interesting. My story, it started during COVID. I had a dream, and in the dream, the Lord sent me to a funeral home to connect and say, offer them these packages. So I thought, okay, I'm going to be working with funeral homes, but actually, it turned out to be something different. He just wanted my yes. So I started because of a dream, but when I began to start my training, the people that began to come to me were women. I had some who had lost, it was due to death, but the majority were women going through divorce, women who, like myself, were grieving the loss of something significant, whether it's not being able to have children, loss of a hope, a dream, loss of relationships that were not just divorce, but family relationships, friendships. So a lot of things God began to highlight to me was they're grieving and they don't know it. We know the grief journey, grief process when someone passes away, but it's rare that I saw in my practice that we connect with the grief when we have significant loss that is non-death. And so that's how my journey started. It started with a dream. It started with God giving me an influx of women who needed someone to help them know you're actually grieving. It's not just depression. It's just not frustration and irritability and anger. It's grief. And I want to help you learn how to grieve in a healthy way and actually mourn.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, there's so much alignment. We definitely have to talk because I've helped people realize exactly what you just said. Grief is definitely seen in death and the loss of a loved one, but it's more than that. It's missing something that you used to have, something that you loved. I've had some, people in some of my sessions that grieve body parts, right? Who have gone through cancer, gone through different situations, whether an internal body part or an external body part that you can't see or can't see, it's still the loss. Someone grieved not just the loss of her father in the physical, but also the loss of her father not ever being able to walk her down the aisle for a wedding. So this process of expanding grief, I'm so glad to hear that there are other people that see that, because a lot of times we've missed that. So, kudos to you, and your people that you work with are blessed to have you recognize that. That's so important.
Yes, it is. It's something, a language we don't hear, disenfranchised grief, right? The
Yes. Oh
grief
my
that's
gosh. Yeah.
not publicly acknowledged, it's not validated because it's not socially validated because it's one that's not really, really seen. We don't see a lot of people publicly mourning, right? I totally get, I didn't have my father to walk me down the aisle, and I grieved his death, but years later, I began to grieve our conversations. I felt it so much in my body. I thought I was sick, and I was taking medications and trying to get better, and I never got better. And when I slowed down to tune into my body, what my body told me was, I miss my daddy. right? I missed my daddy, had gotten married, my business was scaling, and I seen so much of him in me that I never seen before. And I grieved the ability to have that conversation, to share those experiences. And so that's not something that people publicly say. So we call it disenfranchised because it's not socially validated, right? It's not openly acknowledged. And so because when it's not, we feel like it's less than, right? And it's not less than. We feel like it doesn't matter. It's not important. But if it's your experience, it is important. It does matter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your feelings are valid. Yeah, no,
Mm.
absolutely. So, what was the moment that you realized that you can help transform someone's life through the services that you provide? You talk about disenfranchised grief and hidden grief and things that we don't acknowledge. How did you identify, here's what I can do to help someone along their journey or help with that transformation? And then if you could just share what that looks like when you're working with your clients.
Yes, ma'am. The moment, I think, like I said, I had the dream, I began to do the work, going through the training. I'm sure you're aware. But when God would highlight my own personal experiences, my own personal journey, it it gave me another way to hear. I was hearing through a different degree of compassion. And part of my journey of, because my secret grief, my hidden pain, I talked about my dad, but I'm not able to have my own, I was not able to have my own biological children. And I found out during a time when I was getting ready to get married, but I went to therapy myself. And my therapist, after hearing my processing my story, she was like, Tracy, you're grieving and you need to give yourself permission to grieve. And I think for me, that was the missing piece in practice with my ladies, is that I needed to say, hey, give yourself permission to grieve, because a lot of times what I was hearing was the shame, was the regret, and the resistance. And so when I heard the language, give yourself permission to grieve, that changed how I began to change my life, because I had to go through the journey. But it also changed how I began to show up in practice with the people that I'm working with. And so giving yourself permission to grieve, first step is awareness, right? We have to become aware of what it is that we've lost. We have to become aware of what are the circumstances that's produced the wound on the inside of us. So it's helping them, one, come in, because sometimes we just need to talk, right? We want our stories to be heard. It's important to be seen. It's important to be heard. So in therapy, that's part of what I do. In coaching as well, is I'm present to hear you. I'm present to see you. And in listening to them, I kind of guide them into their place of their moment of awareness. Do you know that it's this? This is what I hear you saying. How does that feel? So bringing them into a moment of awareness and bringing them into the place of being able to acknowledge, I'm an emotional being. I was created to have emotions. Emotions are not right or wrong. They simply are. They're pleasant or unpleasant, but I'm going to have them. So part of the journey is helping them to be able to slow down and connect with, I'm an emotional being. That's okay. And why are these emotions surfacing in my life? So when it comes to grief, it's surfacing because I have a loss. And what does that mean? A lot of times it's also defining. We use this language because we just, that's our communication. But do we seek to identify what it means? Right? We know textbook definition, but what's my lived experience? So when I say you have a significant loss, what does that mean to you? Do you even know what the loss is? So it's awareness, it's acknowledgement, it's accepting that it is my lived experience. And simply because I am, that has meaning, that has value. It's during the journey of no comparison. A lot of times in grief, when it's non-death, and we're talking about the disenfranchised, for me, it was being able to say, just because I didn't conceive, my loss is not less than the one who conceived and miscarried, the one who conceived and their child passed away. My loss is no less meaningful just because of the degree or level or what the experience is. It's still. So practicing acceptance that your experience is yours and it doesn't matter what's going on in other people's life, all this comparison takes our ability to heal away when we do it. So it's education, right? Educating on emotions, educating on you matter. That's something that's very powerful that I see in session, being able to say, you matter, your experience matter, your loss matter, your pains, your hopes, your dreams, it all matters. Just validating that, being present and authentic. I see that also brings healing to them. And sometimes not everything could be given a purpose. Not everything can be given a purpose, but is there some purpose we can give it? And what does recovery and restoration look like? And empowering them to know that you have some control in writing your narrative moving forward. So that's kind of what that looks like.
Absolutely. And I love the validation, because a lot of times, when you're in sessions and you're talking to people and you're sharing that space with them, that's sacred, right? I also want to say that's a sacred space for someone to entrust you with sharing their story. It's really important to know how special that is, right? And to be authentic is important, to show up as your genuine self. Mm-hmm. But to validate and affirm that their grief is important. If it matters to them, then it's important. It's not any different than anyone else's. So thank you for sharing that. So your practice is faith-based. And yes, that's, very, very important. And me being Reverend Dr. D, that's important to me as well. So how did you confirm that that's what you wanted to do? And do you see a difference in ensuring that you stay true to your faith calling in your practice? Because sometimes people struggle with that, right? You think that you're going to miss out on clients or professional or revenue, just to be quite frank, because you're focusing on a particular population, particularly faith-based. But I know for me that's super important. So I would love for you to share with the audience, why was that so important to you?
It's important to me because it's who I am. As a therapist, we don't show up in our space as a blank slate. We're the first person actually in the room. So knowing who I am and knowing what my beliefs, my values, how it's going to cause me to counsel someone is very important. And so I say faith-based, and I don't say I'm a Christian that does therapy, and my practice is built on my foundation of my faith, but all of my clients are not Christians. I've worked with clients that are Mormon. I've worked with clients that are spiritual in that they're practicing, spiritual things as far as white magic, crystals, things that I don't participate in. And so I say that I'm called to be a light in darkness, and how that shows up depends on who's before me. So I stay true to the foundation of it, because God is the CEO of Heartfelt Needs Counseling and Caring Center. And everything that I do from the foundation of prayer and listening to the voice and the leading of God. I've had some clients where I struggled because I was like, oh my gosh, my faith and what I believe conflicts what they do. But in my intake, I share, my practice is faith-based. This is what it means. I believe that we're body, soul, and spirit, that we're going to look at all parts of that when you come into the space, depending on what your presenting concerns are and what goals you want to reach. So we talk about that a little bit. I share I am a Christian. It's not my job to convert. Now, if we have the same faith, or you're curious about what that means and you want to bring that into our space together, I'm more than happy to do that. And if we don't have the same beliefs, I'm open to exploring some of that, as long as I feel like it's not a safety issue to me. And we have a conversation about that, and they have a choice after consultation. Would you like to move forward knowing these things about me, or would you like for me to help you find a referral for someone else? And so, but it's important to me, because I told you, my practice is built off of Isaiah 61. And I feel like it didn't just say to the Christians, healing, the broken heart of the Christians, decreeing freedom just to the Christians. And so I look at my relationship with God is what I want people to see, not necessarily religion. I want them to see the love of God. It's the Bible tells us it's the love of God, that the perfect love casts out all fear. you know, and love that covers a multitude of sins. So when you come into the space at Heartfelt Needs, what I want you to encounter is love. And that's my faith.
Yeah, absolutely. And your name signifies encountering love. How did you, what brought that name to your spirit?
It was a book years ago that I was reading, and it talked about releasing peace in a city to go forth and meet the heartfelt needs of the city. Yeah. And that just grabbed me. And so I did heartfelt needs counseling in the and caring center because I knew it was going to be more than just therapy. I knew that I wanted to offer other services. Still in the process of doing that. I'm writing now, doing some different things, but I wanted to be able to be in a space to connect with a person's heartfelt need and meet it, because I believe that's what Christ has called us to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just have a couple more questions for you, Tracy. So for those listening today, if someone is, struggling and they may have some hidden grief or not even know if they're grieving, but they know that they're feeling a void because of something, and they're not sure how to address it or even what the next steps would be. And we know as counselors and coaches that, there isn't a one size fits all, right? So just, in the general sense, someone's listening to this podcast today, what would you say to them as far as encouragement or helping them to figure out the next step of talking to someone?
I would say, first of all, really connecting with the fact that you matter, and no matter how insignificant or whatever it may be, it matters because you matter. And if you don't know what the next step would be, it may be, do you have a best friend that you maybe can just kind of start and ask, hey, what were your thoughts about therapy? I offer a free 15-minute phone consultation, right? Or you could reach out by email, and it doesn't hurt just to ask questions. It may be you don't feel like you're ready to talk to anyone at all. Journal. I'm a big fan of journaling. I have a community that's a self-care community called the Journaling Hour. And sometimes just to put what you feel, what you think, what you wonder, what you're questioning, pen to paper to write it out. It helps because a little bit of clarity may come. Sometimes writing and journaling separates you from the intensity of the emotion. So being able to do that, if you have a faith-based communities, is there a mother in the church? Is there a pastor? You might not go to the senior leader, but is there a pastor or someone that you feel safe enough to say, I've been feeling this way for a while and I just want to talk about it or just hear your thoughts on it. So know that you matter. And the first step, like I said, is awareness. And just a little bit, can you challenge yourself to share just a little bit, communicate with someone else to come into that space that maybe can help you figure out what the next step is.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So how do people find you? Where are you located? How can people reach out to you? What's your contact information if someone is listening and they want to connect with you?
You can connect with me at heartfeltneeds.com, www.heartfeltneeds.com. That's my website. There's a form there that you can fill out. Heartfelt Needs Counseling and Caring Center. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, trying to get in the TikTok world, not too fond of it, but I'm trying. But definitely Facebook, Instagram, and at my website, Heartfelt Needs Counseling and Caring Center. The website is heartfeltneeds.com.
Awesome. Any last words of encouragement you want to share with the audience?
Any last words of encouragement? I would just say, sometimes what I'm finding myself in the last couple of weeks saying a lot. We're in a life where we're busy. We're going. It could be very valuable to you to slow down, right? Mm-hmm. Slow down and just check in with yourself, close your eyes, go inward and just ask yourself, how am I doing? How am I feeling? Is there something that I feel like I want to put to voice, something that I feel like I want to express, something that I feel like that I want someone else to see or know? So that would be something that I would say, just slow down. And something else that I always say, when we come into a relationship with love, when we come into a relationship with light, which is Jesus, right? In darkness, so many things can grow. Shame, regret, the comparison of a lot of things grow in darkness. But if you could just come to a little bit of light, just enter into a little bit of space of light, it causes the darkness to begin, to pull back. And so light might be, like I said, a bestie. It might be going to sit at mom's house. It might be, sitting with yourself, just in the sun. But
Right.
find a little bit of light to affirm that to you, that you do matter,
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you. You're doing such amazing work. I'm so glad that there are other people out there who are really focused and passionate about helping those going through a journey of grief and understanding what that journey is. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. It's been great talking to you.
You too.
Well, thank you for joining me today on the Dee-Brief with Dr. D. If this episode spoke to your heart, share it with someone who needs a word of hope and clarity. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with our social media community. And remember, healing is not weakness, it's wisdom. You don't have to lead on empty. You don't have to rise alone. You were built to lead, to heal, and to thrive from the inside out. Until next time, lead well, heal deep, and walk boldly. This is Dr. D signing off.